Now I'm just gonna say a big apology. One of my housemates is actually playing Dark Souls 2 right now, and he's just not having a good time. And so that's what any of the shouting is if you hear any of it at all. So today we are here to talk about Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3 was the first Soulsborne game that I ever played, and I'm not too sure what drew me to the franchise. I think it was because I heard that the franchise was hard, so I just thought, go for it. And it's just so sad that we will possibly not see a new entry in the Soulsborne series for a very, very long time, especially now that From Software are working on Elden Ring. And it's just so sad. So sad. But as always, with every Soulsborne entry in this series that I've been doing, there is a criteria. So let's move on to the criteria of Dark Souls 3. Now I have a quick announcement, so I'm just going to break up this video very quickly. But as mentioned in my previous video, yes, I know, I'm getting on with the trend, I've made a Discord. But yes, it is called the Hydranator's Hub. Feel free to join, you can suggest videos, we can chat gaming news. It is a glorious, glorious place to be. So if you're interested in making video suggestions or you just want to talk with me in general, then feel free to join the Discord, link will be in the description below. But with that out of the way, let's carry on with the rest of the video. Dark Souls 3 is certainly better received than its predecessor Dark Souls 2, but it is only fair that we judge and evaluate each entry in the Soulsborne series in the exact same way. So once again, for those who are new to the channel, we will be going over story, environments and world building, NPCs, enemy variety, secrets, bosses, and ultimately a conclusion to round off the video. But with that all out of the way, let's move on to the story of Dark Souls 3. And I have changed my approach to the story aspects of these videos, so let me know if you like the change. But let's carry on with the story of Dark Souls 3. From the very beginning of Dark Souls 3, the player is told that the flame is burning out, fading ever closer to being extinguished. The Bell of Awakening is rung, which will wake up the Lords of Cinder, and it is shown to us in Dark Souls 2 that rekindling the flame is actually a cycle. Before the fire fades, a worthy soul will link the flame. Now this is very different in Dark Souls 3, as we know that the flame has almost gone out, and no one has yet to rekindle it. Now this is very important to the overall story of Dark Souls 3, as now the player will set off on an adventure to a world that has already been consumed by darkness. Well, much more than either Dark Souls 1 or Dark Souls 2's worlds anyway. The world of Dark Souls 3 has already delved into darkness, as we see many settlements being consumed by the undead, unlike in Dark Souls 1 and 2, where the areas were much more closed off from society, therefore proving how far the land of Lothric has fallen to this undead curse. Once the Bell of Awakening has been rung from Firelink Shrine, you, the player, will wake up, and are now ready to take on the land of Lothric, in an attempt to rekindle the flame, which is slowly ushering in the Age of Darkness. Once the player has made their way through the Cemetery of Ash, killed the first boss and headed to Firelink Shrine, which for me personally is the worst hub area in the series, just saying, the player understands that they will have to kill 4 Lords of Cinder, those being the Abyss Watcher, Yhorm the Giant, Aldrich, Devourer of Gods, and the young Prince Lothric. These are all people who have previously linked the flame, such as Gwyn and the player characters from Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, as well as many others who are unknown to the player base. The young Prince of Lothric is the chosen one, let's say, the one who was foretold to relink the flame, but it appears that he refuses this claim to sit on the throne of lords, and in turn by doing this, the Prince of Lothric ushers in the Age of Dark, letting the undead roam the lands and ensuring that all life will slowly be forgotten and fade away. By the time the player has reached Farron Keep, they will encounter the first of the lords, those being the Abyss Watchers, which is one of the Lords of Cinder. Although there is more of them, many speculate that they are all one collective mind. But with Dark Souls, everything is speculation these days. Next, the player will eventually land themselves at Anor Londo, which in Dark Souls 3 is covered by moonlight, unlike the Dark Souls 1 version of Anor Londo, which is full of life, colour, and sun. Praise the sun! The new moonlight setting suggests that Guinevere did in fact die during the events of Dark Souls 1. Killing her in Dark Souls 1 was honestly infuriating for the fight with the Dark Sun Gwyn, because you couldn't fast travel to the boss, and I'm getting off topic here, so let's just get back on track. The chosen undead player will head to the top of the staircase and fight Aldrich, the Devourer of Gods, yet another Lord of Cinder, reawoken by the Bell of Awakening, and after their death you will claim their soul. The third Lord of Cinder is Yorm the Giant, who is not only very tall, but he can be found in the profaned capital, and when the player first sees him they may think they can just stay at his legs and chip away at his health bar, but instead the player must use the Storm Ruler, which can be found by his throne. This weapon is also a callback to Demon's Souls, yes, Demon's Souls, so it is a very nice throwback. The player must use the Storm Ruler to overcome Yorm, and only once he has been knocked down, the player will recover his souls, with one more Lord Soul to go. Finally, we have our final soul for the chosen undead to collect, that being the soul of young Prince Lothric. After journeying to the top of Lothric Castle, once again From Software, so original, it's just written gold, the way that they come up with these names. But the younger prince is joined by his older brother to help him fight, but after a horrible two-phase fight, and the soul of the young prince has been collected, the player is now ready to link the flame. After the chosen undead makes their way back to Firelink Shrine, it is time to rekindle the flame. All of the souls that the player has been collecting have been placed on their respective thrones, and Ludleth of Corland, who is the 5th Lord of Cinder, who has been sitting on his throne patiently waiting for the flame to be rekindled, ultimately accepts his fate and passes away. And only once all of the Lords of Cinder are burning, the player is ready to enter the Kiln of the First Flame, the final location of Dark Souls 3. Upon heading to the Kiln of the First Flame, the player will see how twisted this world has become, and I would argue that both of the Kiln of the First Flames from Dark Souls 1 and 3 do look very similar, aesthetically anyways. And once the player walks through the gate, it is time for the chosen undead to fight the Soul of Cinder in an attempt to rekindle the flame and stop the Age of Dark. The Soul of Cinder is a culmination of every person who has ever linked the flame previously. This boss's moveset is very akin to a player's moves, emulating the many others who have rekindled the flame. The second phase, however, is very interesting and very fan service-esque. I'm sorry, I have to say it. The second moveset of the Soul of Cinder is Gwyn's, the first person to link the flame. And they even play his boss music from Dark Souls 1. Once again, the fan service is just on point. After this fight is over and the Soul of Cinder is dead, the player is now able to make the choice into what ending they want for Dark Souls 3. The first ending being the linking of the flame and bringing in the Age of Fire. The second is claimed to be the true ending, where the chosen undead will bring in the Age of Darkness with the help of the Firekeeper. The third ending is where the player will resist the flame and in turn harness its power, and the player will become the Lord of Hollows. Oh, and also the bright sun is now white, which is pretty cool. But this is also corrupting the cycle of linking the flame. The fourth and final ending is similar to the second's ending, but if the player chooses to attack the Firekeeper because there is a brief moment they can do that, the Age of Fire will still end, but the player will take the embers from the Firekeeper, and it is presumed that the chosen undead will use this ember for personal gain. These are all very fitting endings to a series that is so beloved by many, and it is presumed that we will not see another Dark Souls game for many years, perhaps never. I just hope we see more Souls games in the future, that's all I can really say. And so that was the story of Dark Souls 3. Now I really enjoyed Dark Souls 3's approach to narrative. It feels much more akin to Bloodborne's approach to storytelling rather than Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2. This is because 1, From Software was working on Bloodborne before they worked on Dark Souls 3, and by doing this they incorporated many aspects of Bloodborne and tried to infuse them with Dark Souls DNA. And therefore the story of Dark Souls 3 had enough to go off of that I didn't question any of the story later on down the line, which definitely was a bonus. And so with the story over and done with, let's move on to the environments and world building of Dark Souls 3. This iteration of Firelink Shrine, or just the hub world in general, isn't my personal favourite. However, I do have nostalgia for this version of Firelink Shrine, as this was my first entry into the Souls franchise, and so this is how I knew that Firelink Shrine really was. I really do enjoy the aesthetic of this Firelink Shrine, however, as it represents the fire burning out due to no one rekindling the flame, and so it just fits with the lore quite nicely. I do like having everything at the main hub world, incorporating everything from the blacksmith, merchants, firekeepers, all in one place, just like in Dark Souls 2. I think this is a really nice feature that I feel like no one really talks about in comparison to Dark Souls 1, where all of the useful NPCs are scattered across the world. However, I feel like I'd rank this Firelink Shrine or hub world lower than the others due to the fact that it doesn't actually lead anywhere. In Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, those hub worlds had routes that you could take from the start, and so you chose where you wanted to go. Unlike in Dark Souls 3, where you can only start in one place. I just personally don't enjoy the linearity that Dark Souls 3 brings to the table, but that's just down to me. Now, Farron Keep is quite literally Blacktown 3, baby! But in all honesty, Farron Keep is not as troublesome as its older brothers, those being Blighttown and the Black Gulch. But at this point, I feel as though it wouldn't be a Souls game without having an area that was filled with poison. It's become as much of a core feature to the franchise as bonfires, bosses, and Estus flasks. I did find these smoke signals which guided you where to go to be a very nice feature of this area. It really gives me a Dark Souls 1 vibe. Which is actually true for the rest of the game, as this nostalgia-filled game is full to the brim with little nods to the other entries in the series. Generally, however, I didn't feel too much hate towards this area, but since it was quite substantial to the experience of Dark Souls 3, I thought it would be best to drop it a mention at least. Now, the Catacombs of Carthus are very Dark Souls 1-esque. To be fair, a lot of this game is very akin to the earlier entries in the series. And it's almost like Dark Souls 3 was stealing notes from Dark Souls 1 in a test. I feel as though this area is a combination of two areas from Dark Souls 1, those being the Catacombs and Sen's Fortress. Carthus really does feel like a death trap waiting to get its claws in you, but just because it takes inspiration from other entries in the series doesn't mean that I should look down upon it. The Irithyll of the Boreal Valley is one of the most stunning locations in all of the Soulsborne series, and I think that's putting it pretty lightly. Walking out of the catacombs to see this stunning location is very overpowering and goddamn beautiful, there I said it. The enemies are also very interesting, not personally my favourite, but decently a big change compared to other areas in Dark Souls 3. This area does lead to the infamous Pontiff Sullivan fight, which we will get onto later, and oh boy do I have a story to tell about Pontiff himself. One thing that I really do like in Dark Souls games is a surprise, and this is the surprise encounter on the bridge. It's all peaceful and quiet, and then BAM! You see Sullivan's Beast. Now, this is an optional encounter, as you can just run past it to the bonfire, but it is a very nice surprise to keep you on your toes. Anor Londo is back and is in the same state as if you killed Gwendolith in Dark Souls 1, where the illusion of light is gone, only leaving an area in a perpetual state of darkness as the moon shines over Anor Londo. This location is one that I appreciate a lot more after coming back and playing Dark Souls 1, and exploring Dark Souls 1 version of Anor Londo fully in comparison to Dark Souls 3's more stripped back experience is a bit diminishing in its return, but I'm fine just being able to see Anor Londo once again. However, I feel as though this iteration of Anor Londo fails in comparison to Dark Souls 1's Anor Londo, and although it doesn't take away from seeing Anor Londo in a new light, get it? You get it. New light, because the sun's gone, and now it's just the moon. Get it? No? Well, at least I tried. And for the final area that we will go over, we have the Kiln of the First Flame. There is not a ton to go over for this area, but since it is the last area, I thought I would include it anyways. Now sadly, this area is not as big as the other entries in the series. All you have to do is walk a few steps and there you are at the boss, and therefore there is no climactic journey to this fight as with Dark Souls 1 and even Dark Souls 2. Although it is a short pathway to the boss, it is very beneficial if you are constantly failing the fight. And so you don't have to travel very far to get back into the action, which I really appreciate because I died a lot. No, seriously, I did die a lot, like it was painful. The area surrounding this fight is really cool, with the sun being eclipsed, leaving an ominous glow to the fight. And also the buildings behind the bonfire are so twisted, it almost looks like reality is falling onto itself. So on an aesthetic side of things, I'd say that this area is really brilliant. I just wish we had more to explore is all. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. I've missed off quite a few notable locations in Dark Souls 3, but this is mainly due to the fact that, well, I'm saving them for the secret section of the video, so stay tuned to get around to those locations in the secrets. First we have the Firekeeper. Now I would like to say that she is my second favourite Firekeeper, as she does give insight into the world of Dark Souls 3, but sadly she doesn't have an actual questline like Shanalot, the Firekeeper from Dark Souls 2 does. All around though, I did find her to be a good character. The whole Ashen One thing that she says every time you interact with her does get a bit annoying over time. However, she does get a feature in the ending to Dark Souls 3, so I guess that is a bonus. Although you will have to do a specific ending to allow her to be present in that end cutscene. The blacksmith Andre returns from Dark Souls 1. Once again, From Software are trying to tug at those nostalgia strings. But in all fairness, Andre is the definitive blacksmith for Dark Souls in general, as I never really cared for other blacksmiths in Dark Souls 1, or even the blacksmith in Dark Souls 2. Andre is a great character due to the fact that he always feels alive, as your character can actually have genuine conversations with him. It's very comforting. And it is also very handy having him staying in Firelink Shrine instead of being in a completely different location. Ludleth of Corland is an NPC in the Dark Souls series that doesn't really get enough credit. He has such insight into the world of Lothric, as he is a Lord of Cinder who has once rekindled the flame. Ludleth is also very handy due to him being the merchant for all your boss weapons and spells. And if I'm honest, I'd say that he is a very helpful and handy NPC. But in all honesty, I did forget about him when I started to write about NPCs in Dark Souls 3, but in all honesty, he isn't exactly the most memorable NPC in the entire series. I mean, we've got Solaire, Sigmire, and Andre, as well as many other characters. He just doesn't have much of a presence, and therefore he's not that memorable. For me, the most memorable enemies have to be the demon enemy, and I believe this one-time enemy is only found in the Undead Settlement, but I can't remember if he appears anywhere else in the game, so please let me know. I found this enemy to be very unique, as not only their designs are very different to every other enemy in the game, but I love the fact that this enemy is basically a mini-boss, or it looks like it anyway. When I first came across this enemy, I was like, oh, a boss fight. But it turns out it wasn't a boss, but on my first playthrough I remember finding it very intimidating to say the least. Another enemy that I found to be really unique and interesting was the Pus of Man enemies. There certainly hasn't been anything like this enemy in the Souls series to date. Or so I think anyway. I think it's just a cool aspect of the game, as you are baited into believing that the Pus of Man is just a normal enemy, and then as soon as you get close it morphs into a big hulking beast. I was well and truly caught off guard by this enemy quite a few times. But it is really nice to see that Dark Souls 3 did try and innovate in certain aspects of the game, such as new enemies and enemy designs in general, as I think that all of the enemy designs in Dark Souls 3 look great. Now for me, my least favourite enemy in the entirety of Dark Souls 3, I'm trying to think, I think it would have to be... Yes, yeah. It would have to be the gargoyles. Now, I've been absolutely demolished by these enemies, and I'm not even too sure why, as I'm generally quite a high level in Dark Souls 3. But trust me, being bombarded by a group of gargoyles is not, it's just not a pretty sight. It's just, no. But I must say, it is really nice to see the gargoyle enemies actually have a redesign in comparison to Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, where they use the same model. But in Dark Souls 3, they certainly gave the gargoyles a new and fresh design, so there's always a bonus. Where would the Dark Souls series be without a few secrets? Well, I believe that I have found a few that could spice things up for you all. First of all, we have the Smouldering Lakes, a location with some really cool enemies and items. The way that you access this area is by cutting a bridge in the Catacombs of Carthus. Now, this is generally quite well known amongst the Dark Souls community, but even on a first playthrough you would have no indication to try and cut the bridge. In fact, the only way you would know is by accidentally hitting the bridge's ropes when attacking an enemy. This area is also home to the centipede enemy called the Carthus Sandworm, much like the Pokey or Wiggler enemies from the Mario franchise, but with a unique Dark Souls twist that makes this sandworm an intimidating foe to say the least. This area is also home to a secret boss called the Old Demon King, which I did find to be a fairly enjoyable fight with some great boss music. Another great secret area in Dark Souls 3 is called the Archdragon Peak, which can be found by performing an emote found in the world and heading to the Irithyll dungeon. This location is home to one of the gimmick fights of Dark Souls 3 and also one of the hardest and most rewarding fights of Dark Souls 3. But we will start with the first fight, which is the Wyvern. The premise for this fight is not the most conventional thing in the world. You cannot directly attack this boss, instead you have to run around the surrounding area and jump onto the Wyvern's head, landing an instant kill. The other boss of this area is the Nameless King, a great and rewarding fight, and it could honestly be one of the most enjoyable fights in the entire series, as this is what makes such a great fight so much better. The fact that it was a secret, hidden away. And so From Software really wanted to reward those players with one fantastic boss fight, as generic as that sounds. And so here we are once again, the boss ranking, well, not boss, why do I keep saying boss ranking? It's not boss ranking, Ben. It's not a boss ranking. But we've reached the boss section of the video where I will be discussing my general thoughts on each of the bosses, and no, this is not a ranking video for all of the bosses in Dark Souls 3, but just my general thoughts on each of the bosses and my experience with them. So without any further delay, here we are, the bosses of Dark Souls 3. And enjoy, you know, I know that that's the only part of the video that people watch. It's cool. I know. It's fine. I'll move on. You watch the video. Go. Just watch the bosses. Watch the bosses. Go. Shoot. Ilex Grundir, and I hope I said that name right, is the first fight in the game. Now, I'm not going to be too critical, as it is actually quite a decently hard fight. Much harder than any boss in the Dark Souls series, but not as hard as Father Gascoigne from Bloodborne. And I would say that the transformation halfway through this boss fight was certainly a shocker. Since Dark Souls 3 was my first game, I did find this boss, that being Vort of the Boreal Valley, a bit of a challenge. His movements were like nothing I had seen before up until this point in my gaming career. I found this boss to be a great way to properly put the player in the deep end before properly starting their adventure. When first playing Dark Souls 3, I thought that the Curse-Rotted Greatwood was a main boss, but until I finished the game, it appears that it was optional. So, yay! I didn't really enjoy the mechanics of this fight, but I found it to honestly be one of the most memorable in Dark Souls 3. The Crystal Sage is a weird one for me personally, as it didn't really feel like a boss fight, perhaps a mini boss fight. This is mainly due to the fact that I believe I finished this fight on my first try, and felt more like a mini boss than anything else. The Abyss Watchers were one of my favourite fights in Dark Souls 3, but also one of the most frustrating, as at one point I vowed I would never touch Dark Souls again. This was on my first playthrough, by the way. But I am very glad that I stuck with it and defeated the Abyss Watchers, otherwise I wouldn't be making this series right now. But I really loved the two phases to this fight, as I think they were a real test to see if I could stick with Dark Souls. The Deacons of the Deep is one of the few gimmick fights in Dark Souls 3. Yes, there are more than one. This fight is pretty generic, specifically when I found out that this was the gimmick fight, where the boss will transfer to different enemies, and so it doesn't actually get challenging until the actual boss reveals themselves. Hello, gimmick fight number 2, how's it going? The High Lord Wolnir seriously was a very memorable fight, but for other reasons than you may think. I just found this boss to be rather boring. Yes, you hit the boss's gauntlets to remove some of its health, but I just didn't find this fight to be as enjoyable as any other in the series, and if I'm honest, I'd have to say this boss fight was pretty weak. Here we are, one of the secret bosses of Dark Souls 3. This fight for me was a fair bit of a challenge, as I believe that I was underleveled for this fight. But the Demon King's moveset was really great. I really liked the flow of the fight and the music was brilliant. And I think that this is where Dark Souls 3 thrives, in its music design. Pontiff Sullivan. Ah, boy do I have a story for all of you. So I got one of my housemates to play Dark Souls 3, and upon him getting to Pontiff, he was really struggling with the boss. He spent 3 hours a day for 5 days trying to defeat this boss. And I feel like that story says enough about Pontiff and his mischievous ways. Yorn the Giant is the penultimate gimmick fight that I have for you today. And I know, I'm very sorry, there's one more after this, but there's no more. But Yorn was a great fight, as you get to use a very classic weapon from Demon's Souls, that being the Storm Ruler. I just found this fight to be very memorable and enjoyable, as its simplicity can deceive you, and you can get caught off guard, and if you're not paying attention, you may get wiped out. Ah, the old Ornstein and Smaug boss arena. Damn, I haven't missed this place one bit. But in fairness, I found Aldrich to be a very intimidating foe, especially with the arrow barrage that this boss can hurl at you. And they do seriously pack a punch, so be careful. But seeing this area again after Dark Souls 1 made me feel like Dark Souls 3 relies a bit too much on nostalgia. I was very surprised by the Dancer of the Boreal Valley. The moveset on this boss can really be a killer, especially later on into the fight when the attacks get more aggressive. The actual boss fight even feels like a dance, as you're always on the move. It's like the breakdancing equivalent in Dark Souls. Do a roll, then do a roll back, then forward, then to the side, then diagonal. It's just a bit of good fun. I really found the Dragon Slayer armor fight to be a bit of a challenge for me, and I can't work out why. I feel as though from playing other entries in the series, however, since playing Dark Souls 3 that is, I feel like the Dragon Slayer armor fight is a combination of the Ornstein and Smaug fight, with those heavy electric attacks from Smaug and those fast and swift slashes from Ornstein. Osiris the Consumed King. Ha! I remember this fight as clear as day. The Osiris fight was, for me, not what I expected at all, but this guy was fast, vicious, and ready to pounce at any moment's notice. And his moveset was, for me, very unpredictable, and that intro cutscene for this character is very confusing just as a side note. The Champion Gundyr is a harder version of the very first fight in the game. Now, I've never really felt as though this fight changed very much. Perhaps maybe the boss has a bigger health bar, but in general I didn't really notice much of a difference, but it may just be a few more hits to take down this boss, rather than a dramatic change to it. Lothric the Younger Prince was a fight that made my brother quit Dark Souls, and to be honest, I may have had the same experience. This fight was brutal, especially when I thought the fight was over, just to see a second phase. I remember screaming at the TV when I saw both of the prince's health bars, not to mention that the older prince can be revived if killed. Yeah, it was not my best of moments, but I powered through anyways and defeated the younger prince. And finally, the very last, I promise you, the very last gimmick fight in the Dark Souls series. Don't worry, we have Sekiro next. But we have the Ancient Wyvern boss fight. Now this fight is very straightforward. Run around the arena until you're above him, then you can plunge your weapon of choice into his head, leading to a one-hit kill. And although it sounds tedious, it was actually very satisfying to pull off. Oh, the Nameless King, the alleged son of Gwyn. This fight is certainly up there with the greatest bosses of the Soulsborne series, along with Gwyn, Gehrman and Ornstein and Smaug to say a few. I found this to be one of the most enjoyable fights that I have ever played, and there is such a rush of adrenaline when you finally finish the fight. Honestly, it's fantastic. And finally, the final boss in the Dark Souls series up until this point. I mean, maybe we'll get another entry in the future, but we'll have to wait and see. I remember spending countless hours on the fight with the Soul of Cinder, as I slowly chipped away at its health bar, inching ever closer to defeating Dark Souls 3. The mix of movesets include the player's moveset in the first phase, and then a complete Gwynfest in the second phase. As now the Soul of Cinder emulates Gwyn's moveset from Dark Souls 1, as well as accompanying by the boss music. But the day I defeated the Lord of Cinder is a day that I will never forget, as it was my first ever Souls game that I completed. And do you know what? I don't think you could ever forget your first entry into the Dark Souls series, and I certainly know that I won't. And so that was Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3, once again, was my first entry in the series, and if I'm honest, I wouldn't say it was my favourite. Although I really enjoyed it when I first played. I played this game 11 times in a row when I finished playing it. I just kept playing it over and over and over and over and over again. But now I would say that Dark Souls 3 is perhaps my third favourite in the series. I feel like its over-reliance on nostalgia really hinders the overall experience for me, now that I have played every other entry in the Soulsborne series, minus Demon Souls. Still waiting to get that PS5, scalpers. Still waiting for the PS5. But that doesn't take away from the fact that Dark Souls 3 is a solid Dark Souls experience. And if I'm honest, I definitely say that Dark Souls 3 is the entry point for everyone who wishes to play Dark Souls. Its streamlined mechanics make it easier for new players like myself at the time to get a grips with all of the Dark Souls-y mechanics. But yeah, so that was Dark Souls 3. There is sadly no more Dark Souls entries in this series. Next will be Sekiro, and then after that, when I get a PS5, it will be Demon Souls. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, then subscribe and turn on the notification button so you don't miss another upload from me. So thank you, and goodbye.